Hey y'all, it's fall, so let's make a pumpkin pie. I have an idea that I may do a series of Thanksgiving recipes, so I think I'm going to start out with the pumpkin pie. It's the easiest thing you could make for Thanksgiving. Just a few ingredients, and you're going to mix those together in the mixer and pour it in a pie shell. You can use frozen pie shells, you can use 2 regular 9-inch pie shells, or you can use one deep dish pie shell. Today I'm making my own fresh pie crust, so I'm going to do a deep dish, and so I'll just have one pie, but you can divide it into 2 and have thinner pies. My mom always likes to do that. But first I want to show you, I have aprons, and most of all my aprons came from my husband's grandmother. And I love this one. It's my favorite. It just so dainty and pretty, I think. And she would always put an apron on when she cooked. And I loved that about her. And I will always remember her when I put on her apron when I cook. So I loved Sue so much. And she was a wonderful grandmother. So I've got my apron on now, and we're going to make this pie. I'm going to start out making the crust. So I'm going to go ahead and add 1 cup of plain flour and 1/2 teaspoon of salt into my bigger bowl, and 6 tablespoons of cold butter. We're going to cut our butter into our flour until we have a coarse consistency. Doesn't have to be really fine. You want some of those chunks of butter still in there. The butter is what makes it flaky when it melts into the flour. So this is only enough to make 1 pie crust. If you were going to make a pie with a double crust or 2 pies, you would double this recipe, and I will put that in the comments in the description. Okay, so we have our crumble mixture of butter and flour. Okay, I'm going to add just a couple of tablespoons of cold water at a time. There's 3, and then we're going to mix that together and start mixing. And when your dough starts coming together, that's when you know you have enough water. So we need, it's still dry. I'm going to add a couple more tablespoons of water and mix again. When it starts coming together, you'll know. You don't want it too sticky, but you definitely don't want it too dry. Let's do another one. Okay, I think I'm going to add just a little bit more. Okay, that's about right. Now I'm going to flour my surface and roll it out to have it ready for my pie plate. Okay, to save time, I have put out some aluminum foil that I'm going to roll my pie crust on. I'm going to flour the surface of that and flour my roller so nothing sticks to that. Alright, so let's take out. So I've formed it into a disc, and you could do this ahead of time. Wrap it with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator. But today, for time purposes, I'm going to not refrigerate it. I'm going to roll it out, make sure it's not sticking. Pretty thin, and you want it to fit your pie plate, so roll up pretty thin. And you can see the chunks of butter in here. That's going to make it so flaky and tender. You don't want those crumbs of dough to be too small. Okay, here we go. Now, okay, I'm going to transfer it over to my pie plate. So I'm going to take my roller and roll it up over the dough, up over the roller, rolling backwards, making sure it's not sticking. I feel like it's sticking a little bit. Bring my pie plate over. Position my dough over without stretching and roll it over. Try to lift it. A little short on this side. So pick it up. You don't want to stretch, you'll get holes. Okay. So this is the fun part. I'm going to fold it. Can you see? I hope you can see what I'm doing. Fold it in and pinch. Fold it in. Fold it and pinch. There's different ways to do this. I don't like to waste any of that dough. It's so delicious. So I kind of fold it underneath to preserve some of that. I need to flour my fingers. See, I've got a little short on this side. I'm going to take some of this. Folding and pinching as you go around. It's a little sticky. Probably should have refrigerated it a little bit while I mixed my pie filling. I'm kind of on a time crunch today. So there's our pie crust. If you have any extra, you can trim off with a knife. I just kind of clean up. Make sure your bottom is cleaned up and set it aside. So now the cleanup is that easy now. I'm ready to make my pie filling. Okay, we're going to start making our pie filling. It's 1 can of pumpkin puree, and you want to make sure that you are buying pumpkin puree and not the canned pie filling. There is a big difference. It does have other things in it. This is just pumpkin puree. Okay. 3/4 cup of sugar. 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. Go ahead and crack 2 eggs in a separate bowl and add that to your filling. And I'm going to start mixing on low so it doesn't splatter. I didn't put my guard on today. So let that mix. Now this is where the spices come in. I only like cinnamon in mine. I don't like cloves, so I don't use cloves, or I don't use the pumpkin pie mix or the pumpkin pie spice. I just want cinnamon. So I'm going to put a teaspoon of cinnamon. And now I'm going to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Going to mix that well. And now you're going to pour your filling into your pie crust. don't want to lose any of it, so I'm going to get a spatula and scrape my bowl. Okay, so I have put it on a pizza pan, and I'm going to bake it in a preheated 425 degrees for 15 minutes. After that 15 minutes, I'm going to bake it, turn the temperature down to 350, and bake for 35 to 40 more minutes.
Your pie is completely done when you take it out of the oven and the center is no longer jiggly. You're going to let it cool completely before you slice it and add some whipped topping and enjoy.